Okay guys, moving on to part 2 of our Sharks and Fish game. This will involve adding an underwater background as well as the fish that the shark is going to eventually eat. So first step is the background, and I am going to change one piece from what I had said, and that is I'm going to allow you to use the underwater background just based on the time that we have. To do the background, you're going to want to go over on the stage because right now we're on the shark. So we're going to switch over to the stage by clicking on this button. And then if you click on the backdrops button, you'll see it automatically gives you those two. We could use the paint tools to draw our own underwater background here, which is what I would normally have you do, but I am concerned a little bit about the amount of time you have remaining, and this does tend to be one of the most time-consuming pieces. So instead, let's just go ahead and use one of their existing backdrops. So in the bottom left, you're going to go to the Add Backdrop and go to the Search button, and we're going to go to Underwater, and you'll have two to pick from. I always kind of like this one because it just seems more cartoony to me, but you can choose the other one if you prefer, or if you think you have time, feel free to design your own, or if you just want to spend more time, you're welcome to do so. So once we have that backdrop ready to go, then we are going to click back on our shark and go back to that coding panel. Okay. Now that your backdrop is ready to go, you're ready to add your next sprite, which will be your first fish. So to do that, you're going to go over to your Choose a Sprite button again. And with this time, since we're doing fish, we're still in animals. So let's scroll down and get the fish. The default fish, the one that automatically pops up as kind of a Nemo fish. And you can see right away that he is way too large in proportion to the shark. So we're going to change his size down to, I'm just going to guesstimate, like around a 40. I know he might seem a little small in that size, but if you're thinking about the proportion to the shark, it's actually about as small as you can go and still see him, and yet not seem to be almost as big as the shark. So the next thing we want to do is start programming or coding the fish how and where to swim. So what we want to do is we're going to be using a motion block, and we're going to go up, and before we do that, we're not going to have arrow keys controlling the fish. These are going to be automated, so we want those fish to start swimming right as soon as the game starts. So we're going to need to go to events and get a when flag clicked, then we'll go to motion, and let's just have them moving 10 steps. And when we have that fish, when we hit that green flag, you can see he moves 10 steps, but then he stops. And clearly that's not going to be enough. So what we're going to need to do is we really want him to swim continuously throughout the game. So what we'll want to do is go to our control command, and then in there we have a forever loop. And remember, loops are used to repeat a sequence of steps. So we're going to put that around our 10 steps here. And let's try now and see what happens when we click the green flag. Well, it works great until, of course, it gets over here on the edge. And then he doesn't really quite know what to do. And so we need to write some additional code to tell the fish where to start, and also then what to do when he hits that edge. Okay? Excuse me. So what we want to do first is code the fish and tell him where to start as soon as that flag is clicked, because otherwise he's going to be sitting over here when he gets started and he's not going to do anything. So we're going to go to the motion blocks, and we want to choose the go to command, and we want him to go over at that left edge. So we're going to grab him, pull him over here to the left edge, and we know that the left edge of our x coordinate is a negative 220. So we're just going to go ahead and put a negative 220 there. But then for y, we don't want him to always be starting in the same exact spot. And so what we want to do is we want to have that up and down or vertical location be random. So there's an option under operators that allows the computer to pick a random number. And so what we want to do is determine what the random location is from top to bottom of the underwater scene. So I can tell you that the top of the stage is 160 and the bottom of the stage is negative 160. Now, because we're using this pre-designed underwater scene, it's really hard to tell where the sand and the water stops because it's almost has a little bit of a 3D imagery to it. And so we're going to allow our fish to swim anywhere from top to bottom. So pick random 160 to negative 160. If you have designed your own background, you're going to need to be careful to decide where the sand actually starts and figure out where is the lowest the fish can go. So let's just imagine that this lightest blue line is where the sand actually is at. And so we would put that fish right on the top of the sand and determine what that Y coordinate should be. So if this were the top of my sand, for those of you that did draw your own, you're going to want to go to from 160, and then you can only go to negative 93, for example, so that it will never go any lower and make it appear as though it was swimming in the sand. Okay, but again, since I used the normal or the pre-designed backdrop, I'm going to go negative 160. All right, now we need that exact same code in a minute, but for right now, we want to tell it to start over. It's basically telling it to start over here at the left and then forever take 10 steps. Okay, so let's try that green flag. He started at the edge and then wham, he hits the wall again. So we are still missing yet another piece of code, and that code is one in the sensing blocks. And the sensing blocks are really a little bit more advanced. And we want it to indicate that when it is touching something to do something else. So when you give a situation like that, if this is occurring, do this, then that's called an if-then loop, and those are under control. So we're going to pull in an if-then loop here below our move 10 steps. And then we're going to go to our sensing, and we're going to say if you're touching. Now in this mouse pointer, there is another one when you pull down that says edge, and that's what you want it to say. So if he's touching the edge, then we want him to just go right back over to the left and start over again. And so what you can do is you can right click and you can just duplicate that one block. Oops, in this case, that is not what happened. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. So we'll just drag that right off. And if you drag this down for a minute and then duplicate, it's going to duplicate just that one block, and we're going to pop that into here. And then we're going to make our forever block up here. Now, as you can see, your fish is flying. That is way too fast, okay? The shark is going to have a hard time catching that. So you want to make the game such that people don't get completely discouraged. So we're going to slow that fish down. So I'm going to stop him, and I'm going to make him more about 4 steps, okay? And now let's see how it works. When I hit the green flag, he's swimming pretty slow, kind of cruising along. Shark could probably catch him sometimes, but not always. So that is a pretty darn good start to our first fish. Now, he's not finished, and we will eventually add more fish, but this is the end of part 2.